Mist hung heavy over Jebediah's cornfield, clinging to the tall stalks like ghostly shrouds. Jebediah, a man hardened by years of toil under the sun, stopped at the edge of his property. Something was wrong. Large, unnaturally large footprints marred the otherwise smooth soil. They were too big for any deer, too wide for any bear. A shiver, cold and unwelcome, snaked down his spine. He'd heard the whispers, the tales told in hushed tones at the general store. Tales of a creature of the woods, a behemoth of myth and shadow. He'd always dismissed them, old wives' tales meant to scare children. Now, staring at the impossible prints, doubt gnawed at his resolve. Jebediah, never one to back down from a challenge, grabbed his trusty rifle from the back of his pickup. The metal felt cold and reassuring against his calloused hand. He walked further into the field, each step heavy with apprehension. The sun, struggling to pierce the thick canopy of leaves overhead, cast long, dancing shadows. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent his heart racing. He could feel eyes on him, watching, waiting. The air grew heavy, thick, with an almost palpable sense of dread. As he ventured deeper into the woods, the air grew thick with the smell of damp earth and pine needles. His boots crunched on fallen branches, the sound unnaturally loud in the stillness of the forest. The footprints led him deeper and deeper, away from the familiar comfort of his fields and into the heart of the unknown. Fear, primal and instinctive, tightened its grip on his chest, but Jebediah pushed on. He had lived on this land his entire life, every inch familiar and dear. He wouldn't be driven away by fear, by whispers in the dark. He would find out what was trespassing on his land, face it head on. Towering above him, a silhouette against the dim light filtering through the trees, stood the creature. It was taller than any man had a right to be, easily 8 feet tall, covered in thick, matted hair that resembled nothing so much as moss hanging from an ancient oak. Its eyes, 2 burning embers in the half-light, regarded him with an intelligence that sent shivers down his spine. The creature's breath formed a cloud of vapor in the cool air, its nostrils flaring as it took in his scent. Jebediah stood rooted to the spot, his rifle forgotten in his hand. He had never felt so small, so utterly insignificant in his life. The creature took a step closer, its massive feet sinking into the soft earth. The stench that emanated from it, a mixture of wet fur and something else, something wild and untamed, made his stomach churn. He had heard the whispers, the tales whispered around campfires and in hushed tones in the general store, tales of a creature that walked upright, covered in hair, a denizen of the deep woods, rarely seen by human eyes. He had always dismissed them as folklore, stories meant to scare children. Now, staring into the creature's intelligent eyes, he knew different. A low growl rumbled in the creature's chest, a sound that seemed to shake the very ground beneath their feet. It was a sound that spoke of power, of a primal rage that made Jebediah's blood run cold. He had faced down wild animals before, but this was different. This was something ancient, something powerful, something that stirred a fear deep within him that he had never known. Fear, primal and instinctive, surged through him, urging him to turn and run. But something, some deep-seated stubbornness that was as much a part of him as his own blood, kept him rooted to the spot. He had lived on this land his entire life, raised his family here, buried his wife on a hill overlooking the fields. This was his land, and he wouldn't be driven off it by some creature, no matter how fearsome.